Welcome one and all to the Forgotten Realms Reviewed. My name is The Leech, and today we are starting on a very long journey through the Forgotten Realms, specifically the novels of the Forgotten Realms. There are almost 300 books in this series, and I plan to review each and every one of them, pull them apart, and see what they're all about. So let's dive right in with the first book. Now, we will be reading through these books in semi-chronological order, meaning the earliest events in the Forgotten Realms we'll be reading first, and the later events we'll be reading later. That said, there is some discrepancies in the timelines due to each individual novel having a timeline of its own, and some overlap. I've put together a list on Goodreads of the order that we'll be reading through these books. Link in the description if you'd like to check that out. That said, the first book we will be reading through is Swordplay by Clayton Emery. It is the first book in the Netheril trilogy, and it is set way back when in the Netheril Empire ages, which are several hundred years before Dale Reckoning in the Forgotten Realms.
Thousands of years before the Age of Elminster, dragons rule the skies of Faerun, and elves dominate the huge forests that cover the land. Only in the mighty magical empire of Netheril are men a force to be reckoned with. Bored and haughty in his mid-air castle, the Netherese mage Candlemas bets fellow wizard Sisquemelin that a certain barbarian who has caught his eye can survive the most savage tests his friend and deadly rival can devise. The only rule, the test must offer the subject some chance to survive, however slight. Of course, playing fair is a concept as alien to the wizards of Netheril as mercy. But the subject of their wager, Sunbright Steelshanks of the Rengarth tribe, has a mind and a will of his own, and Candlemas and Sisquemelin are not the only players in this lethal game of swords and sorcery.
Alright, so my thoughts about this book are, at its purest, Swordplay is a tale of maturation and love. At its worst, though, it's a mess of events strung together in the form of a story. It has a way of kind of stringing along a whole bunch of different stuff, and I don't really see kind of where he was going. I feel like this is much more of a let's set up the next story, and it didn't really feel complete. It felt like here's a bunch of stuff here's the backstory of our characters. If you come to a D&D table, there's all the stuff that you did in your past with your character that defines who you are, and I feel like this is what this story is for Sunbright. Which, let me just say first off, the names are atrocious. There's some good ones. There's, Dorlus, Rulana, and then Sisquemelin. It took me forever to figure out how to say that name. But those are good names, Sisquemelin is a archmage, or not an archmage. She's an arcanist, so she's a wizard. She has a weird name. That's fine. But Sunbright Steelshanks is just a little too much cheese for my liking. Candlemas also just felt really weird. This Sunbright's sword is called Harvester of Blood. Like, really? Come on now. Come on. And all this kind of, it doesn't ruin the story, but it kind of just, every time somebody yells, Sunbright! Like, you're calling for a Care Bear, not some big barbarian guy who's fighting, dragons and liches and all these things, and he's this big badass, but he's also really, really stupid. That's one of the things that comes across in the book, is that he's really dumb, but he's also really smart, and his character is kind of weird. He just has a way. He's the main character, okay, and there is parts that have to develop the side characters that they take away from his. They make him. He's a Mr. Magoo. He's a Mr. Magoo of barbarians, who's just being absolutely led astray by these two wizards that are they're just playing with him like a rat in a maze experiment. Will he get the cheese? Will he learn that fire is bad, or stuff like that? It's just they're pushing him around and they're trying to make him do these things. It makes his character come across as really just, I don't know, poorly written. He has some really great moments where he's, it shows that he's learning, he's maturing, he's becoming a smarter person, less of a barbarian and more of, a true fighter that can wit his way out of, stuff, as well as, somebody who's just brute strength. But then, he backpedals and it's like, oh, there's that lady who I saw before that was obviously bad news. Let's go talk to her again because that was a good idea the first time. Spoiler, it wasn't. And it's just like, he doesn't get as much character building as he gets. Even more is taken away by him just being absolutely stupid at all times. And let's see, Sisquemelin and Candlemas. Sisquemelin is just petulant and just like this nasty little, this little kid, just like, heh, I'm a big witch and you're just, nothing. And not even just to, Sunbright. She actually kind of treats him better than she does her fellow mage in Candlemas. And Candlemas is just this podgy old, I'm trying to get stuff done. Go away, Sisquemelin, not again. Their dynamic, I feel like there could have been much more to their dynamic, them growing their relationship past this little petty back and forth between them. They could have grown a lot more. They did not. And that kind of leads into the end of the book, but I feel like there was potential there for some interplay between the characters that it really didn't get to happen. Every time it went back to Sisquemelin and Candlemas, I just was like, why are we talking about these characters again? I know they're messing with Sunbright. I really don't need to know anything more, because every time we go back to them, it's just boring, petty stuff between them. And Sunbright is where the real action of the story is happening. And yeah, so I feel like they could have had a better relationship. But there is one really, really good moment between Sunbright and Green Willow, who is this elf who has accompanied him on his journey. Really, he's accompanied her on her journey. They just kind of are going to the same place. It's weird how they set up the, Emery puts these characters together. It's just like, oh, they're all going to the same place. Oh, they just happen to be here. Okay. And they're off. That's okay, but anyway, so Sunbright and Green Willow have this beautiful moment where they're at a tavern. They come out of a tavern, and Sunbright runs off after this lady with red hair, and you'll have to read the book. I won't spoil anything too much, but it's just a beautiful moment of character building between these two. I felt it. There's this distance between them after that moment that's like, it's palpable. It's really, really good, but I don't think Emery hones in on that throughout the rest of the book. There's even backpedaling on that. Afterwards, they do. There's a lot of character interplay. Like, they could have grown together. They could have, this relationship between these different characters could have grown more. But at least there is that really, really good moment, and I don't know if that saves the book, but I mean, at least it leaves it with a little bit of a better taste in my mouth after finishing the book. So pacing, I feel, is a big problem in this book. It doesn't start off fast at all. It's just kind of like trotting along. Oh, here's this barbarian. He's being manipulated by these wizards, and then they set him up to go on a quest, and then he's off on this quest, and it takes a lot to get it going. And then there's some good moments along the journey, but then the journey just ends way too quickly. At what I thought, there was a point where I'm like, all right, this is the end of the book. There's still quite a bit to this book left, but this is like the beginning of the end. This is where we're going to be setting up our final villains, and we're going to see all of this come together. There's a part early on in the book that talks about the Farim, which are these like, magic tornado creatures that live underground or something. But anyway, the wizards that are using all this magic in Netheril, they're disturbing their environment or whatever, and they make a note, like there's a certain, Emery makes a fine point to put these people in these creatures in the book towards the beginning, but then nothing really comes of it. They're mentioned again in the end. I guess it's going to come up in the next book, but there's just not enough. They don't come into the ending, and the ending is drawn out. So what I thought was the ending was not the ending. It was just like, that's one climax, and there's another climax after that, and it just feels weird. Like if he was going to use so part of the story is like they're trying to get to Tanainen. The whole little gang of folk, they're trying to get to Tanainen. Green Willow, Sunbright, and Dorless, and the other merchants and things. They're trying to get to Tanainen, and I thought once they got to Tanainen, that's where things were gonna wrap up. And when you read the book, you'll see like, oh wow, this is like, it's ramped up. It gets intense with what Sunbright is doing, but then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh well, that took care of itself. We'll just be going now, and there's still like 3, 4, 5 chapters left in the book, at least, maybe more than that. And I'm just like, what happened? Like I thought that was the big thing. But then like this other thing happens, and they get whisked off in what seems like a whole new adventure to me. It's still related, and it makes sense why he wanted to include this, but the pacing just is ruined by this big climactic, what seems like an ending, and then a little bit of downtime. Oh, there's another thing. And like I said before, the part between like Sunbright's view of events and then Candlemas and Sesquemelin, like it bounces back and forth between the two timelines, or the two plot lines anyway, and it just the wizards do nothing for me. Sunbright's story is just paced terribly. So I mean, at the end of the day, I don't regret reading this book. I'm sure that the next book is going to be a lot better of a payoff. Again, I think that this book was more of like, oh, here's my character's backstory. Here's all the cool things he did and why he's a cool character and why you should care. But I'm only caring at the end of the book, which at the end of the book, Sunbright does, like, he has a whole different feel to him. He comes out feeling like, he goes in feeling like a Mr. Magoo, like a little idiot, who's who knows nothing, and at the very end, he's like Kratos from God of War, just like he wants to rip apart everything, which is, it's great, to see that in a barbarian, but, it comes in weird lurches. The whole book is just lurching and then slow and then lurch and then slow. But I don't regret it. It's just I feel like maybe this was a book that could have been fleshed out in a different, better way to set up these characters for the next book. I hope the next book's going to be really great. I like the direction that it's going. And if it includes the Faerham storyline, which I know where that is heading, if you know anything about the Forgotten Realms and the Empire of Netheril, you know what happens to them. And all I can say is it's something that I want to see fleshed out in these books, and that's why I'm reading these, and like that's why I'm doing this whole thing. Because I want to see more of this world fleshed out. I just hope he can pull it off well, because I think he grasps like the bigger set piece, but I don't think he understands like the pacing of these storylines and whatnot. Anyway, guys, that is all for Clayton Emery's Swordplay, Book 1 of the Netheril Trilogy. Let me know how you liked this video. If you have any suggestions or advice, leave those in the comments down below. Also, what did you think of this book? Did you like it? Do you think the next book is going to be worth reading? Just any thoughts at all, leave them down below. Leave a like on your way out if you liked the video, and subscribe if you want to see more. I will see you all here next time in 2 weeks to talk about the next book in the trilogy, Dangerous Games. I am really excited for this book. Even more so, I'm excited to continue our journey through the novels of the Forgotten Realms. So until next time, farewell.